Iceberg videos. We all know them, and we all love them. If you've been on YouTube for the past few months, you've probably seen these types of videos littered throughout your recommended feed. Personally, I really enjoy these iceberg videos. This is one of the only YouTube trends I've actually really enjoyed over the course of these past few months, with a lot of these keeping me entertained for long periods of time. If you don't know what an iceberg video is, or you just don't know the concept in general, it's a chart with a specific topic, talking about information about said topic. The deeper you go in the iceberg, the more obscure, unknown, weird, or just downright disturbing the info can get. And what iceberg are we covering today, you may ask? The Creepypasta iceberg. If you don't know what a creepypasta is, they're basically internet horror stories that have gotten really popular since the early 2000s. Creepypastas are one of my favorite things to research and read in my pastime, and with my love of iceberg videos and creepypastas, I decided to combine them and make this video. The iceberg we will be using in today's video was made by Reddit user u/a-huge-cow-butthole. No, that's not even a joke. That's his actual username. Also, this is a creepypasta iceberg, so if you are sensitive to somewhat disturbing images, themes of gore, murder, suicide, or anything that could be featured in a horror movie or story, I suggest you click off now. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get started, I need to mention that this video is inspired by the Super Mario 64 iceberg by Mishkaz, the Chris Chan iceberg by Lucario the Skeleton, and Seth Manners' SpongeBob iceberg. With all that out of the way, with the help of my editor, TS Gaming, who will be reading some of the entries on the iceberg as well, we will now dive into the Creepypasta iceberg. Slenderman. Slenderman, one of the most iconic creepypasta characters of all time. Being one of the first creepypastas, it paved the way for creepypastas on the internet, getting them to the popularity they have today. Slenderman himself is a tall, slender figure who is known to stalk people and drive them to insanity. Way back in the early 2000s, this concept terrified people, and even influencing some, but we'll get to that later in the iceberg.
If you have never heard of the Backrooms, then let me explain. The Backrooms are 3 known levels, and they get harder and harder each level. The way you get in such a thing is by interacting with something out of place, like a dark wall that is not supposed to be that dark. Once you touch said thing, you will wake up in an office-looking area with cream wallpaper and fluorescent lights. How this happens is quite unknown, but the biggest idea is the simulation idea, which is the idea that we live in a simulation, and that when people glitch out or do something that defies physics, you are sent to the back rooms. But don't worry too much, as you won't be alone. There will be disturbing creatures, and will get more disturbing the more levels you go on. The way out, you may ask? You need to find something that is not supposed to be there. Just like how you got there, but it can also send you to the beginning. I would talk more about the simulation idea, but you can go find that on your own time.
Jeff the Killer. Jeff the Killer is another iconic and influential character, becoming one of the most well-known creepypasta characters of all time. But the thing with Jeff the Killer is that he's more infamous than actually looked upon in the good light nowadays, with the story's flaws such as bad writing, bad grammar, and real unrealism pointed out very often, making it looked back upon as one of the worst creepypastas of all time. If you want a quick summary, it's just about a boy who kills his family and some bullies.
Here, Brian. We've all heard of him, not just dead brothers, some say. Others say he's a glitch, and some say both. Kickstarting video game creepypastas, he is an icon. But how and why did he come about? First appearing in 2010 and becoming more and more known in the Minecraft community, you may ask, how did people believe he was real? Well, first of all, people knew it was fake, or at least most people did. But the thing is, Photoshop was not a big thing back then. And you could not just change your skin. Minecraft didn't allow that yet. So many children fell for it. And people making summoning poles to summon him definitely did not help either. Herobrine is, mostly known for, obviously, paranormal feelings that people get whenever they see him in their games, because it's unnatural and, of course, briefing people's worlds.
Ben Drowned. Ben Drowned is one of the most believable creepypastas ever for the time it came out. Ben Drowned is a creepypasta about a haunted cartridge of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, where the main character finds a save file named Ben that he cannot delete, and he plays the game and he finds out more and more about a little boy named Ben who drowned and died and is now haunting said cartridge. This story was so believable back in the day because of the footage it provided, showing all the events of the creepypasta in-game. Hacking ROMs was a really rare sight back then. That's why this story was so believable back in the early 2000s.
I remember when I was very young, my peers telling me about a dog who would smile with human teeth. I had zero clue on what they were talking about until I got home and I searched it up. Smile Dog is an email chain from the early 2000s. The creepypasta is about a bot or someone else who had gotten the email previously. The email would consist of an image of what you're seeing on screen right now. A dog with human teeth. The dog would haunt your dreams and do disgusting things to you in said dream. The only way to get rid of it, send the email to somebody else, repeating the loop over and over and over.
Hyper-realistic blood. This is referring to a lost episode creepypasta cliche in which all the stakes and all the tensity are thrown out the window and it just says something really generic along the lines of, and then hyper-realistic blood poured out of Bob's eyes, for an example.
The Rake. If you're a fan of creepy stuff that happens in the woods, then you have probably heard of the Rake. The Rake is a tall, skinny, wig-like creature that lives in the woods, screeching as it goes, killing deer. And if it sees you, you are dead and you better run. Now talking about its prey, as I was saying, most have discovered that it kills deer and maybe other animals, but it will not think of anything when it sees a human. All it thinks is kill, kill, kill.
Sonic.exe. Sonic.exe is an example of how not to write a creepypasta. Being about a boy named Tom who gets a haunted CD-ROM of a disc with Sonic the Hedgehog on it. He gets it from his friend in the mail, telling him to destroy it. Ignoring his friend like an idiot, our main character Tom inserts the disc into his PC, recording his experience with the said game. Watching Sonic kill all the other supporting characters in the series, before Tom's PC shuts off and a Sonic plush with bloody eyes appears on his bed and presumably kills him. This story grew in popularity fast. Some people liked the story, and the majority hating it for its poor writing and tropes, even back then. Eventually it was deleted off the Creepypasta wiki, and even eventually moved to the Trollpasta wiki, a wiki dedicated to fake creepypastas that are meant as jokes.
Siren Head is one of the newest creepypastas out there. He also made creepypastas big again nowadays. Siren Head is a being that's 40 feet tall or a little taller than 12 meters. When he gets close to you, you will hear a tornado sound siren. And once you hear it, it will come and it will find you and then kill you. So don't get caught in the way of it. You'd be spooked. Spooked, big spooked. You'd be so spooked, I'm definitely not trying.
Squidward Suicide. This one is another classic. Squidward Suicide is told from the perspective of a man who claims he was an ex-intern for Nickelodeon. They claimed there was an unreleased episode of SpongeBob SquarePants titled Squidward Suicide. The episode goes as follows. Squidward performs at a big event playing his clarinet, but everybody ridicules and laughs at Squidward, making him commit suicide later in the episode. This was a creepypasta that kickstarted one of the most popular and oversaturated types of story in creepypasta history, the genre of the lost episode creepypasta.
Momo is an example of creepypastas that went too far. Momo is a zoomed in picture of a statue in Italy, making it very creepy out of context. But how could it be that bad that it went too far? Well, shortly after the creepypasta was made, a WhatsApp number was made. Nothing good happens on WhatsApp, I'll tell you. Which would say messed up crap, eventually leading to a Brazilian girl committing suicide. And besides the Momo, there was no real evidence to the lead up of the suicide, making the story suicide more sketch. And once that got out, the Momo challenge soonly stopped as people realized how messed up the challenge could be.
Lavender Town. This entry on the Iceberg is referring to the classic Pokemon creepypasta called Lavender Town Syndrome, where the pasta states that the song that plays in the background of Lavender Town in Pokemon Blue, Red, and Green version caused children in Japan to get massive headaches, mental breakdowns, and even commit suicide. This creepypasta was also another driving force in the popularity of creepypastas based on video games.
As you can guess, the creepypasta wiki is where all the original and most of the new ones are made here. It's kind of like the birthplace or the central place of everything creepy and pasta. But now it is time to enter the above surface.
NES Godzilla. I don't even know where to begin with this one. This creepypasta is held to the utmost high regard when speaking about video game creepypastas. This creepypasta is about a hacked cartridge of a copy of NES Godzilla, Monster of Monsters, where our main character, Zack, gets the cartridge from his old childhood friend from school. This one is unique to the fact that it's made so believable through its great storytelling and the fact that it ignores most creepypasta tropes for the time it was released, making the story not too fast-paced and unrealistic. The story adds completely new and personalized worlds for the main character, Zack, that terrifies him. I'm not even going to go into detail about the antagonist or the story in general. It's a really long read, but I recommend it. It's best for you to read it yourself.
This entry on the Iceberg is about a real-life event that is related to the creepypasta of Slenderman, but it's a bit different. On May 31st, 2014, two 12-year-old girls told their best friend about if you go into the woods and you go into an abandoned shack, you will find Slenderman sitting there. After hearing this, they lured her into the forest, where they stabbed her 19 times. The victim luckily survived, and one of the girls pleaded guilty and is in prison for 15 years, whilst the other was facing 40 years in a mental health unit. Creepypasta Rule 34. Well, this is basically characters from creepypastas sexualized. Yeah, this is a joke entry from the creator, I'm assuming. I mean, it makes most sense. I don't think they actually have, creepypasta Rule 34 stuff. Actually, you can probably find it on Twitter.
1999. 1999 is a story about a boy who gets a TV in his room for the very first time in his life. After a while, he starts messing around with the dials on the TV and finds a TV station with an odd man that wears a bear costume, dubbed Mr. Bear. Our main character starts to realize, years and years later, that the show was very creepy, and Mr. Bear kinda acted crazy. He investigates more and more over time, finding various things leading to the assumption that Mr. Bear was an insane man. This story is very slow and builds up the tension over time, which works in its favor. This story is either a you love it or you hate it type story in the creepypasta community. Again, just like NES Godzilla, I'm not going to spoil too much about the end or any of the story in general. It's a much better experience if you read it yourself.
If you're a fan of Jeff the Killer, you probably have heard of this guy. Eyeless Jack is who I'm talking about. He is a very pale man with no eyes and bloody eye sockets, usually depicted with a mask on. He is known for taking people's kidneys while they're asleep and sewing it perfectly with no sign of tampering and no evidence that someone was in there. Many think he might have hospital background.
Polybius. Ah yes, another very classic creepypasta. This story didn't become an inspiration to any story per se, but it did become an iconic example of a video game creepypasta, even having a cameo in The Simpsons of all things.
Never saw this one before.
The story is about a 1980s arcade cabinet that featured a weird pattern and weird shapes, making the people who played it feel sick or just lightheaded in general. The arcade cabinet was apparently an experiment from the US government. This story isn't really criticized, but just well known for being influential.
The Russian sleep experiment. Whenever reading creepypasta, it usually has something to do with the US government, but this one's a bit different. In the 1940s, after World War II, the Soviet military were experimenting to see if they could make someone who could not sleep for a long time. They chose 5 random lucky prisoners who were told if they went on with the experiment, they would be set free. After they accepted the idea, prisoners were sent to the chamber-type room with gas that would help them stay awake. The plan was to make them stay awake for 30 days, then let them free. But after a few days, the patients slowly started going insane, and towards the end, the patients were not taking the food they were given and started to eat their own skin. But on the 30th day, they were set free. But the thing is, they didn't want to leave. And when they stopped the gas, the remaining prisoners died.
Petscop. Petscop is an internet horror ARG, alternate reality game, on YouTube about a man named Paul who documents his findings about an unreleased PS1 game that a family member gives him, slowly figuring out that the game might have more of a connection to him than he thought. This story boosted in popularity thanks to game theory a while back. The story is still ongoing. I recommend watching the videos. They are pretty creepy and fun to think about.
This is another new story, but that does not mean it cannot have a lot of content. Local 58 is a YouTube channel that acts like a news channel, with a few other things. At the beginning of the channel, nothing too crazy happens, but over time, more and more things happen, like channels switching from look at the moon to ignore the last thing. Now, I recommend you look into the channel yourself as there's much more. By the end, it is revealed that the aliens from the moon are trying to kill us after we landed on the moon and leaving trash everywhere. This comes from the idea that when the astronauts first landed on the moon and walked out, there was a brief time of silence. Something was not right. But then they came in. Many think that in this brief time of silence, they saw aliens and did not want to worry the public, as if that got out, no one knows really what could happen.
Tails Doll. Tails Doll is about the Tails Doll characters from the racing game Sonic R. The creepypasta is about a man who buys Sonic R for his son, and upon finishing the game, the child's dad is interested in the character of the Tails Doll. So he sneaks into his son's room at night and plays the game as Tails Doll, only to be later greeted to an image of the Tails Doll on a white and red tiled floor, covered in blood. The father is scared at this sight, so he goes to bed, only for Tails Doll to manifest in real life and kill him later on. This creepypasta isn't hated as much as a similar story such as Sonic.exe, but it is still known as a lazy story with a lot of cliches.
Mr. Creepypasta is a YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers who reads creepypastas. There's nothing too much. That's it. Doesn't really do too much. I don't know why this is on the entry. Doesn't really matter.
Personalized Mario 64 copies. This is a theory-type creepypasta that states every copy of Mario 64 is personalized to each player. The theory states that this is why we have people claiming things like L is real, 2401 is real, saying Luigi in Mario 64 exists.
Dead Bart is another lost episode, creepypasta, that starts off with the family going on a plane. Bart is fooling around as he does, but when he breaks a window from being a foolish little boy, he is sucked out, and at the end of the Act 1, you can see a dead Bart in a coffin. At the beginning of Act 2, the family is crying at the dinner table. This goes on for a long time until at the top where it says 1 year later. You see the family still crying, skin to the bone, and Maggie and the pets nowhere to see. At the end, they visit the Bart's grave, where the episode ends. But right before it ends, Homer makes some sort of joke, but it's very muffled and too hard to read from his lips as it's only a cartoon. And with everyone who was on the plane and whoever was ever planned, anyone who had ever been on the show had their Simpsons death date.
Candle Cove. Candle Cove is one of the most iconic creepypastas based around a TV show. Candle Cove is a creepypasta about a show that a bunch of people remember but can't seem to find. The supposed show is about a group of pirates who are friends with little kids that would go on adventures, like your average kid's show. But the twist is that the kids that were now adults went to ask their parents about the show, but all the parents said is that back then when they went to go watch the show, they just turned on the TV and stared at static for half an hour.
Cartoon Cat is an aggressive creature that was found after a group of people went exploring in an abandoned building. But when they went into the basement, they found a tall, freaking looking cat, and that looked like it came from a cartoon. This was said to be maybe even almost at the ceiling, so close to 9 feet tall.
Username 666. Username 666 is a video on YouTube based on a Japanese urban legend about a website similar to YouTube. In the video, the person tries to find a person with the username 666, but with no results. After refreshing the page multiple times, the page gets more and more distorted, with the username eventually appearing, showing lots of disturbing imagery when clicked on. This video became pretty popular, becoming an inspiration to future type horror videos on YouTube.
The Midnight Game. Well, this is referring to an old pagan ritual done on those who break the rules of the religion. Do not play the Midnight Game, by the way. You probably should know that. You have to start at midnight and do a few other things, but you can look into that. It's just a lot of, say this a lot of times. But anyways, when you're done with the instructions, you go around the dark with a very dim candle, and at all costs, stay away from the Midnight Man. For if it catches you, it's game over. You don't want to know what happens at game over. You play this until 3:30 a.m. where it's safe to stop.
Laughing Jack. This is another creepypasta character who is almost as popular as Jeff the Killer himself. Laughing Jack originally came out of a magic Jack-in-the-Box, and he befriended a little boy named Isaac, who got said box. But when Isaac became a serial killer, it turned Jack into an evil killer who was bloodlusted, who would then live out the rest of his days killing people, after killing Isaac, of course. Laughing Jack became a popular character, like Jeff the Killer, but the main community that aren't edgy fangirls just wrote it off as a lazy story, as it should be.
Have you seen this man? That was a hoax made years ago when someone put up flyers asking if you've seen this man in your dreams. Many said yes. But it was discovered years later that the flyer was not true and the image was messing with people's brain by using their brains to think and transform people. They have seen their brains into that. And finally, our final entry on this iceberg, Suicide Mouse.avi. The episode starts off normal with Mickey walking down the street for about 3 minutes, but then you can hear gurgling. Whilst listening to this, someone walked by, took the pistol from the guard that was patrolling the area, and shot himself. Now it is time to dive into shallow waters.
Buried Alive. Buried Alive is another Pokemon creepypasta, like Lavender Town, but not as well known. It's about a secret boss that was supposed to appear at the top of the Pokemon Tower in Pokemon Red and Blue. And if you lose the battle, he will corrupt your save file and kill the player. And he takes the shape of a dead corpse.
Cursed car. Nothing too much to say. It's just a car commercial with a jump scare.
Marina Mortigard Glesgore. This creepypasta is about a video on YouTube that if you search for it, you won't get any results. But the times you do get results, it's a 20-second video of a man staring at you, and for the last 2 seconds, he grins. But apparently there is a different video that is the same thing, but 2 minutes long. But YouTube apparently removed it after 153 people ripped their eyes out and mailed them to YouTube headquarters.
Luna Game. On April 3rd, 2011, a game that goes by the name Luna Game, or Luna, goes public. It seems harmless at first, so a few bronies downloaded it and played it. Nothing too much, right? But it seemed that Luna was more messed up. It's a My Little Pony game, by the way, if you didn't know. That's what bronies are. They're adult, basically men who watch My Little Pony. Anyways, I could go more into the story, but it's so long, and I don't want to fill my history with the random shit. And I'm sorry if this offends you with weird stuff. I just don't. No, I don't want that in my history.
Normal porn for normalpeople.com. This creepypasta is about a guy who got a chain email with the link to the website called Normal Porn for Normal People. After he goes on the website, he's greeted with a very unprofessional looking website with an entire rant on the front page. Realizing each word in the rant is a hyperlink, he decides to go to each link. But the more and more he searches on the links, he finds nothing about what the name of the website would suggest it to be, but rather he finds very multiple disturbing videos. Even one where a shaved chimpanzee was then painted red and put in a room with a woman who was tied up to a mattress. She is mauled to death by the chimp. The website was taken down shortly after the discovery of all the videos. Presumably the police were contacted, and the website was put under government investigation.
Andy96's typing is a WhatsApp story about a boy and a girl who are friends. Annie is home alone, and there's wind blowing everywhere. Well, the boy, David, he just says it's calm out there. Nothing too crazy at first, but she can't sleep. It's the middle of the night. Her parents are out on holiday. This kind of sets up the mood for a spooky atmosphere. But everything is normal until she hears someone walking outside on the gravel path. There's a lot of filler, and no one likes filler. Anyways, for that, let me just cut to the chase. The man breaks in wearing David's stuff, which is weird because he's wearing a football type jacket that has David's name on, and each person in the football thing got their own name, and he doesn't recall anyone else called David. He supposedly kills her and acts like she's Annie.
Mario and Victim 1 image. If you were confused on why we lumped these two entries together, it's because they are both from the same creepypasta. The Mario creepypasta is about a guy who investigates a ROM hack of Super Mario World, just titled in all caps, Mario. The more and more he looks into the game, the more and more he starts to realize its dark secret throughout the in-game text boxes. After beating the first boss, Iggy, instead of the nice message through the text box, it states about a corpse that had its eyes removed, labeled Victim 1. This is also referring to the Victim 1 image, which matches the description of the victim.
Troll pastas. No, they are not pasta strings that trip you and say, "You mad?" No, troll pastas is a wiki just like Creepypasta, but as well, the Creepypasta about troll pastas says pastas that are deliberately so bad they are good.
Where bad kids go. This creepypasta is about a little boy who lived in Lebanon during the Lebanon War. He says that during the nights he would watch a show to distract himself from all the explosions and gunfire that he would hear outside. The show was all about why kids should not be bad, and at the end of the show, each time, there would be a camera shot of a chained-up metal door with a bunch of children screaming, with text on the screen that said, "That's where bad kids go." Later in his life, he became a photographer and searched for the studio that made the show. After finding the studio all destroyed and burnt up, he decided to go explore what was left. After finding the metal door and opening it, he was greeted to bloodstains, feces, and bones everywhere in the small room with a microphone on the top of the ceiling.
SCP-173 is an aggressive object type thing. It seems to be a totem with some paintings on it. It's most known for its only functions being bleeding and pooping everywhere, despite having no internal system or access point or exit point for anything to go. So the Foundation sends some janitors like once a week. But the issue with SCP is if you look away from it or blink, it will kill you. It will snap your neck and kill you. So the way they do it is they have basically 3 people. 2 of them are looking. 1 of them can change and they go in a circle whilst looking. And they just cycle out until it's fully clean and then they leave.
Kill Switch. Kill Switch is an urban legend creepypasta about a game where you wake up as a woman named Proto in an abandoned coal mine. Your job was to traverse your way through a bunch of levels trying to get back to the surface. There was another character named Gast, but it was basically impossible to play as due to the fact he was invisible. The thing about this game is that when you beat it, it deleted itself off your computer, making it a rare game. Some people even questioned if it even existed at all.
I Hate You is another Mario creepypasta. There's so much content inside, so I'm just going to give you a summary. The person who is writing this, well, he's on like a PC type thing, and he has cheats, so, well, he finds a way to go through a Easter egg, goes through a tunnel, but then a bleeding pill goes on, so he turns on his immune cheats, hits it, thing dies, and then there's bleeding text in the corner saying, "I hate you." After some boos come up and scare him, he kills them off, and then more texts and blood say, "Why won't you die?" After going through more mazes, you'll find Luigi, who was a secret agent the entire time working for King Koopa. He almost kills Mario, but then Mario kicks him into the lava, and Luigi says, "Oh God, no," finishing off with an end screen.
Terrible.exe games. This entry just refers to the plethora of bad games based on .exe creepypastas.
The man with the upside down face, also known as the Upside Down Man and simply the Man, is an urban legend who is notable for being one of the most evil and threatening beings. The man with the upside down face appears to be a man with a very large grin that has his head upside down. In a photo where people are surrounded by a car which had an accident, the man is seen to have in the middle, smiling at the event. Many associate him with the Grim Reaper for his appearance at deaths. Now, we are about to enter the underbelly part of the iceberg.
Pen Pal. This is referring to a creepypasta that is way too long for me to read, and the script has already taken like hours. So I'll just summarize what I have heard about it. So it's basically just about a guy who reflects on all the creepy things that have happened in his childhood. Look, I know that I don't know much about this one, but if you want me to read it and give a full review later on in the future, I could.
John. John is a Minecraft creepypasta. It's kind of all over the place, and I felt like it was made by like a Redditor or something because, for instance, when John dies after playing some games, they say, "Boy John was murdered on Meme Street," or "What the heck?" Except it's censored because Cole is a good Christian boy. Honestly, this is a troll pasta that somehow is still on the Creepypasta wiki.
Some Ordinary Gamers, Haunted Gaming Series. This is just referring to the time when Mutahar from Some Ordinary Gamer recorded creepypasta readings. But just on a side note, go check out his channel. He's really cool.
The Seed Eater is a main antagonist of the creepypasta stories of, for instance, Seed Eater experiences or Through the Trees. In a series of blogged accounts uploaded from 2010 to 2012, a man named Clifford or Cliff R. Howie cataloged all the evidence and information he could find about a creature that he and his friends had encountered during their childhoods. The Seed Eater is one of them. Seed Eater is cunning and tricking and is a master of manipulating others. It is shown to be extremely intelligent. Seed Eater appears as a dark humanoid figure, resembling a hybrid between a human and a bird.
The Evil Farming Game. The Evil Farming Game is a game that was rumored to exist. The game was apparently like a farming game like Stardew Valley, for example, but with one key difference. At the beginning of the game, the player kills their wife, while also having to maintain a normal farm. You also had to go on your day-to-day life, keeping the fact that you killed your wife away from the people and the cops.
Sometime during the late 90s, after Noggin was launched, Nickelodeon aired a new show on their program called Happy Appy. It sounded like a nursery rhyme that a babysitter would sing, but it wasn't. It was a short show and was normally played in duets. Happy Appy seemed to be a show about an apple who's happy. Big surprise, Happy Appy is also known for helping children and giving death stares. One episode, Appy was going around the playground telling kids about the cycle of life. By cycle of life, frogs and plants. It's weird. The kids then say, "Thanks, Happy," but then smoke creep behind Happy. So Happy and the kids turned around two towers, 9/11 mentioned in 1999, were burning up. People falling out, there was a lot of screaming fire and crashed airplane. Now, reading more into it, it kind of just seemed like after 9/11, after the 9/11 type, what is it? I guess you could say, time, the episode, it kind of just went off the rails and became unbelievable. Like, happy, blah, 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 came to my house and is trying to kill me. It is kind of just bad now.
The Harbinger Experiment. The Harbinger Experiment is a creepypasta about a US government experiment about the effects of the human mind when isolated. I couldn't find a bunch on this one because there was a lot of different info sources with different meanings and just different information in general. So if you know about this one more, just tell me in the comments.
The Expressionless. It's about a woman who arrived at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in 1972, wearing a bloodied white gown. What set the woman apart from the other patients was she had a mannequin-like appearance, and yet moved fluently like any normal human being. Her face was also devoid of certain facial features, such as eyebrows, and had makeup all over, for no discriminable reason. The nameless woman had a kitten in her mouth, which she pulled out before collapsing to the ground.
SCP-087-B. SCP-087-B is an experimental indie horror game based off the SCP-087. There's not much to say about this one either than the fact it blew up on YouTube a while ago pretty fast.
The Theater was an old game released around the same time as Doom. Today, if you ever find it, it's only available in crappy bootleg CD-ROMs, which more often than not don't actually even contain the game. Once again, it's a creepypasta, so finding the game, it's probably not even real as well. Like I said, it's not real. Upon proper installation, the game then starts up without any introduction besides a main menu. It's simply the spirit of movie theaters exterior on an empty city street. The title fades in, and then the three menu buttons, new game, load options. Well, new game is the only working menu option, as the wiki says. The theater has a few things in it, and one being the hallway. Those claiming to have played the original game report to have felt extremely uncomfortable walking down this hallway.
The Grieving. The Grieving is a lost episode creepypasta about the amazing world of Gumball. This lost episode is about Darwin and Anais skipping school only to be murdered later on, and Gumball hanging himself as well. I don't have much to say about this one. It's just another generic lost episode creepypasta, like the millions of them there are. I should mention that even though this creepypasta isn't super well known, the writers of the show actually made a reference to it, making a joke about the name in an episode, making a fake disclaimer warning as well. I will put a clip on screen.
Warning, not for the faint-hearted. You are about to see the first real footage from a lost episode called The Grieving. Most people who have watched it have never been seen again. The Grieving contains scenes that some viewers may find extremely upsetting. The amazing world of Gumball cannot and will not accept any responsibility for the effects of what you're about to see. You have been warned.
episode 34 of Ed, Ed, and Eddie. This is another lost episode between October 7th, 2003 and October 21st, 2003. Episode 34 was accidentally released 1 week before it was scheduled. The quality of the episode was mediocre when held to regular standards. The setting was very stormy looking, as many say. The characters acting odd and hating each other, with them sobbing after each line. One of the characters, or the antagonist, Kevin, had a lisp and had a sexual tone. The episode began with Eddie and Ed, but with no Ed. The main antagonist, Kevin, was on his bike near the Eds until the screen went blurry and faint moans from them crashing. Now there's much more to cover, but basically they're in some sort of room with a doctor. This is also all over the place, so I recommend reading on your own time.
Repercussion of Evil. This is a troll pasta about doom. Not really much to say here. Moving on.
The last entry on the underbelly is about a man, smiling man. This story is about a creepy man and our protagonist, who we never really learn the name of. Let's call him John. John used to live in a major city. John usually walked at night at a police patrolled parks. His city was very nice, often joking with his roommate that even the drug dealers are polite. One night, on his way back, he sees the man, the smiling man, and let him have the majority of the sidewalk as he thinks he is drunk, dancing up and down the sidewalk. The man's face had a cartoony smile, and our main character crosses the street from the dancing man to avoid him, but then the man stops and stares parallel facing John with that smile. John started running and turned a street corner. Seeing no one around, he blinked and just took a breather, and then turned and saw a smiling man in the alleyway, tiptoeing closer and closer to John. John could not escape. He just felt trapped in his own mind and thoughts. But then the smiling man just danced away. Don't know why. He just is. Maybe he was drunk. Nobody knows. Anyways, now we should go deep into the deep end.
Jane the Killer. I don't know why this entry is so deep on the iceberg. Jane the Killer is literally just the female counterpart of Jeff the Killer. That's it.
Ted the Caver is basically one of the first creepypastas out there. Starting in 2000 and last was updated in mid-2001, but by the sounds of it, it follows the story of Ted, who found a cave with a small hole. Knowing that he might get trapped, him and he what calls B make a system to get on top. After clearing an area, they move some rocks and start making a nice area to climb in. They started to go in the hole. It was almost perfect. When they got out, they went home to begin work the next day. Once it was big enough, he went in and took some pictures. With some eerie feelings, they decided to go home, and by the end, that was the end. I have no clue why it's so low. It's not even creepy. I guess the paintings inside there were a bit creepy and how they got in there. And, when their friend Joe went in, not Joe Mama, a different Joe, alright? When their friend Joe, at least what they call him, went in, he couldn't hear anything, and just didn't want to talk about it.
Go for a Punch. Go for a Punch is apparently a lost anime OV about a group of 3 to 9 girls, it's not exactly specified, who are all locked in a bathroom with no windows or no doors, no way to get out, and all of them eventually killing themselves in gruesome ways. This was originally mentioned in a 4chan post from 2015. A whole subreddit community was made for the search to find this anime, only for the search team to get in contact with the original 4chan poster and him telling them it was all a lie and just a made-up fabricated joke.
SpongeBob Bootleg episode. This is a lost episode of SpongeBob that was just static in colors and other crap like that until this short clip of SpongeBob. The tape was discovered by 5 boys in an abandoned mental institute. Of the 5, 2 committed suicide. 1 went missing and was found a year later in a dustbin, and one of them did not wish to speak of it, and the final one gave the tape to the investigators. The picture you're seeing now is a picture that many say they seen blink.
Mr. Mix. Ah yes, finally a creepypasta I actually know and enjoy. Mr. Mix is about a game that was very similar to a game like Mario Typing, for example, except the person who is teaching you how to type is a chef named Mr. Mix. Mr. Mix would make you type in simple words of food items such as banana, apple, and orange, etc. So on and so forth. But the game got harder and harder eventually, becoming virtually impossible, until a group of hackers bypassed the level and got to see the final level of the game. All the hackers associated with Mr. Mix or the hack either went missing, went offline forever, or just went insane. They found one of the hackers in a grocery store years later, wearing a chef's hat, trying to kidnap a little girl. When the police arrested him and tried to interrogate him, his only response was, "I'm Mr. Mix."
Cupcakes. This is kind of a dumb one, but basically Pinky from My Little Ponies starts killing and slaughtering everyone, friends and family, everyone, and then turning them into cupcakes. That's right. We are literally towards the bottom of the goddamn iceberg. Why is it so low? Jesus Christ, the creator of this. It's really nice that you made this, but it saves us time. But why did you put cupcakes so low on the goddamn iceberg?
Ayuwoki. The Ayuwoki is an internet meme based off of Michael Jackson. Moving on.
Katie Robinson. Short story, she should not be here. I took so long finding this, but it turned out she just came from 4chan, uploading spooky photos and acting like she is the face of Jeff the Killer, like the little face and saturated and stuff. Turns out she's not even a creepypasta, so yeah. Also, I'm not saying that she isn't like the actual face that was used. It's just I don't know why. It's literally not a creepypasta. But anyways, moving on to Biggie Cheese.
No, Rap Rat is not Biggie Cheese. This creepypasta is about a character called Rap Rat. It is a puppet-like character that appears in a VHS tape that can interact with people watching it, and if you anger him, he will display an image of your deepest fears right there on screen.
This entry is a bit darker. Basically, a girl from Japan committed suicide shortly before she drew a painting of herself. When this got to Korea and the painting did, it spread like a wildfire. The weird thing is, when people stare at it, they go crazy and even take their own life. I don't see it when I'm looking at the image, but oh well. That's why it's creepypasta.
Servine Birth. This creepypasta is a lost art project by a British photographer who made multiple creepy videos, the most well-known being one about an albino deer that gives birth to a weird humanoid-like creature covered in black goo. That video disturbed many people.
It Has No Face is a story following a protagonist. Let's call him Steve. Steve lived in California He was driving up to Oregon for whatever reason, and it started snowing a lot. As he looking for a place to stay the night, but when he found a sign saying near a city 162 miles, his heart sank. After finding a cabin in the middle of nowhere, he parked under a tree nearby and walked over, knocking on the door 3 times, asking, "Hello?" But then no one answered. Noticing the door was unlocked, he says, "Coming in. If no one's in here, let yourself known." No one responded. He walked in pitch black, and he turns on his flashlight to look for a light switch, but there seemed to be none, and he didn't want to lose his battery on his phone, so he just turned it off and went on. He decided just to go around in the dark and lay on a bed. But then he sees a doorknob turn, and then a tall creature walks out on all fours, standing up and then looking down at Steve, with no eyes, no face. Steve calmed down until it started to speak. How are they not scared? It said it loud. Happy to see a fellow no-face. The creature went to touch Steve's face until the alarm clock from Steve's phone went off, making the creature scared. Steve dashed away and escaped and drove back.
Cleverbot, Ben Drowned Easter egg. I don't exactly know what this one is talking about. Yes, I know what Cleverbot is, but most of the videos or articles I found about this were just either in Spanish or just complete nonsense I couldn't understand, or just information that wasn't helping at all.
Alright, I literally took a solid 20 minutes looking for a summary, but I could only find things that are like 10 pages long, and I don't have enough time to read through that. So if you want to on your own, that's fine. It basically, the showers is something to do with like a mom or children or whatever going to a cabin or something. I don't remember, or I don't really know. It didn't really. I couldn't be bothered reading through it. But I read the comments, and basically most of them gave it like a 10 out of 10. Some gave 7 out of 10, saying that the writing was great, except the story itself wasn't really scared. So I mean, if you want to if you want to look into it, you can. This is supposed to be a summary, a full-on video about one thing. So anyways, moving on to not our final entry, which will be, abandoned by Disney.
Abandoned by Disney. Abandoned by Disney is a creepypasta about a guy who goes to an abandoned Disney park and documents his findings. And by the end, he goes into a basement where he finds a haunted Mickey Mouse costume who rips its own head off and tries to kill our main protagonist but fails, with him getting back home safely. Just on a side note, I really like this story's atmosphere. It just has such good build up to everything, and then just kind of ruins it with the generic ending. Well, that's the end of part 1. This took so long to write, record, and edit, so please consider subscribing, and all this video took about 25 hours of work. I want to become the biggest Joe Obama on YouTube, so liking and commenting, and hell, even subscribing can help my dream of that. Well, the part 2 is going to be maybe a week or so. I don't know. Well, I will see you guys then. Discord link in the description. See you guys later. Bye.